And welcome to the live stream. So, today I have some great explanations as to why I suspect strongly that Taylor Swift works for the CIA, works for the Central Intelligence Agency, maybe even for the FBI, the Federal Bureau of Investigation. But especially, I have great explanations and reasoning as to why I think that Taylor Swift is a CIA operative, CIA agent, intelligence officer for the CIA. And uh, also, quickly to preface this whole conversation, uh, a lot of times, even I wonder whether or not everyday people should be discussing matters relating to the CIA if they're not actually in the CIA or from the CIA. And I guess my answer to this, and this is why I do it actually, is because I have watched many TV shows about the Central Intelligence Agency, and I've watched TV shows about American spies and Russian spies. For example, I watched Homeland and The Americans. The Americans with Kerry Russell, which is a great TV series about Russian spies posing as American citizens. I seen The Diplomat, which also is with Kerry Russell, really great. It's about diplomacy with Iran and Russia, etc., and other countries. And the other show that I watched, which is really good, is called Covert Affairs. Covert Affairs is with Piper Perabo. It actually has a lot of Canadian actors, Covert Affairs. And then also Alias. People probably know Jennifer Garner. Alias was a great TV show about spies. And a lot of these American TV shows, I mean, they do not make the CIA look good. These American Hollywood TV shows, many times they open people's eyes up to the truth, and they really do not make the Central Intelligence Agency look flattering. At least not always. Sometimes they do. So, and then even Tucker Carlson has lately been doing a lot about the CIA, Tucker Carlson, and he doesn't make the CIA look good. I am not, my intention with my videos is to not paint the CIA as either the good guys or the bad guys. I don't like to do stuff like that. Unless, of course, in cases where they really are bad, then of course, yeah, those are obviously bad guys. But I do also like to talk about gray areas. I like to talk about gray areas because oftentimes it's not that it's a right solution or a wrong solution, a good answer or a bad answer. Sometimes it's just different. Just people do things differently, right? And sometimes different can be better and sometimes different can be worse. So, um, I was watching an episode of The Americans and it was saying about, oh, would it be better for people as a strategy to just avoid talking about politics, avoid talking about the FBI, avoid the Russians, avoid this, avoid that, just stay out of it. If you just stay out of it and put your head in the sand and not and just turn, and just not look at it, it'll go away and it won't affect you, right? But then in an episode of The Americans, it was basically an episode where this Russian guy who was a bit older, he was in a relationship with this American woman, right? And she doesn't do politics. She doesn't uh, do work for the government. She doesn't work for the CIA, but she's just a random American woman who is happens to be dating a Russian spy. And even the Russians in the episode, Kerry Russell and the other actor, I forget his name, they admit, they say, I mean, I guess like avoiding politics, if you can think that you're avoiding politics, you can think that you're just putting your head in the sand. You could think that if you just ignore the problem, it won't affect you. Like, oh, you don't want to get involved. But look at this American woman. She is very, very, very much involved, probably the most involved, and doesn't even realize that that whole time she was dating a Russian spy, a Russian KGB officer, right? So that goes to show you that ignorance is not bliss. Ignorance will not protect you. Being ignorant to politics that affects the world, being ignorant to politics, being ignorant to what the government does, will not keep you safe. Look at those Iranians in Iran. There's probably a lot of Iranian civilians in Iran who have nothing to do with politics, who don't even vote, who stay out of politics. And look, they're being bombed. Iran is being bombed. There are places in Iran where the people probably don't do politics, they don't talk about politics, they just want to just have a normal, simple life, and that their strategy is to just completely stay out of it. They just want to stay out of it. Well, are they staying out of it? They're being bombed. So the best strategy when you look at all the wisdom from all these TV shows is is it's better to be prepared. It's better to be ready for everyone, whether you work for the CIA or not. Whether this is your life. This is your life in the balance, okay? And you cannot expect and even put, it's actually kind of wrong, when you look at it this way. It's kind of wrong to put pressure, so much pressure on the CIA to defend you. And at the end of the day, these are just people who are being paid a paycheck and a salary. They don't really care about you. I mean, their job, right, technically is to care about you, but do they really care about you? Do the people in the Central Intelligence Agency really care about you? And do the rich elites really care about you? No, right? They don't really care about you. It's their job in some cases. It's the job of the Central Intelligence Agency to protect Americans. But I mean, when is it go beyond just the job for these people for a paycheck, you know? And a lot of times, what people don't realize is the Central Intelligence Agency is not perfect. The Central Intelligence Agency makes a lot of mistakes. And even if their intentions are good, even if the CIA operatives have the best intentions and really want to care for you and take care of you and protect you from Russia and protect you from China and protect you from Iran and protect you from sometimes Germany, even if the CIA operatives have the best intentions in the world, it doesn't always work out in the favor of the CIA. In fact, quite often, the bad guys win. The CIA assets, for example, another perfect example, Carrie from not Carrie Russell, I'm talking about now from Homeland. I'm talking about from the Homelands, the character's name is Carrie. The Carrie Russell is the actress from The Americans, but Carrie is the character from Homeland who it was funny on Saturday Night Live. They were like making fun of they were doing like a Homeland parody. Saturday Night Live. There was a funny Saturday Night Live sketch and where they were doing a parody of Homeland, and so Carrie, who's like an intelligence officer, an American intelligence officer, Carrie, her name, Carrie is her name. And I must have said Carrie now like 100 times. But interesting. Another Carrie was the Carrie from. Remember the Carrie movies? uh, where like she kind of has like these telekinesis psychic powers and the Carrie and she goes to prom. Carrie, remember the Carrie movies? Anyways, sorry, there's a lot of Carries around. Anyways, so basically, she had an asset. She had an intelligence asset, and her job, Carrie's job, was to keep this intelligence asset safe, and she definitely did not. This was like the first season of Homeland. This is like either the first, second, or third episode where Carrie, she's a CIA intelligence officer, and it's her job to keep one of the assets safe, and she does not keep her safe. So there you go. Okay. You people have to take leadership, more leadership these days. Less followers, more leaders. More leaders, less followers. And now to my main point, one of my main points is should people volunteer? Should people start volunteering to be voluntary CIA agents, voluntary and private investigators, etc. It's a question. I am asking a societal question, a hypothetical question. And here is not so much of an answer, but it's just some sort of things to think about. Things to think about. Not an answer, not a yes or no, but things to think about. When thinking about the CIA, first, do they even really care about everyday people? And two, even if they do care, it doesn't mean that they're going to be successful in protecting you. Third, um, you put a lot of pressure on these people. They only have two hands. Especially imagine when you work for the CIA and the government is constantly, reducing your budget for the CIA, right? So now these people, they only have two hands. They're limited amount of per people, and their budget has been cut in half. So, and you're putting so much pressure on the CIA to defend you. So when you ask about volunteers, they're volunteer firefighters. There are many kind of volunteers. Volunteer, even lawyers sometimes do pro bono work. Not often because lawyers are scumbags, but sometimes lawyers do pro bono work. Well, actually, careful with the lawyers who want to do pro bono work because they could be scumbags too. But anyways, so yeah, so maybe it is a good idea. I'm not saying it's a yes or no, but maybe it is a good idea for people to become voluntary CIA agents. And I'm just saying it might be a good idea. This is a discussion. This is a discussion. And also, another interesting point was another episode of The Americans, in which the Russian opposition, the Russian KGB, were able to corrupt and get a list of all the CIA operatives that were heading to Moscow. All of the CIA agents, all of the Central Intelligence Agency agents that were heading to Moscow. In the episode of The Americans, the Russian KGB were able to get a list of all of these American CIA officers, American Central Intelligence Agency officers that were heading to Moscow. So imagine if you have a bunch of volunteers that technically, officially do not work for the CIA. They're not being paid by the CIA. They don't work for the CIA. They never worked for the CIA, officially never worked for the CIA because they're volunteers. They're volunteer Central Intelligence. They're volunteer Central Intelligence Agency officers, right? Central Intelligence Agency officers, they're volunteers, right? So now look at those people. If the Russian KGB or China or Iran suddenly now got a list of all of the official CIA officers working in the CIA, and suddenly there was a big security breach. Well, guess who would be protected? All of the volunteer CIA officers who are volunteers, who don't get paid by the CIA, who don't work for the CIA officially. Those people's, their identities would be protected, right? So that's another thing to think about. And then the other thing to think about is the fact that, especially Canada, and I know Canada well. I am a Canadian and I know Canada. Canadians are friggin' cheap. They are. Even if you just watch these reality TV shows, like the top prize on these American reality TV shows is like $250,000. And then on these Canadian reality TV shows, it's like a $20 Tim Hortons gift card. Like Canadians are cheap. Okay, maybe it's not that cheap, but Canadians are cheap. And I was exaggerating just a little bit, but Canadians are definitely cheap. And Canadians probably, I would guess, knowing Canadians myself, they would love it if there were a bunch of volunteer CSIS agents, volunteer everything. Canadians love volunteers because then you don't have to pay them. It's like they work for free. So Canada has a very they're cheap. They're cheap people. So if Canada, this is my guess. This is what I guess. This is what I predict. This is what I think. What I guess. I would guess that if the CSIS, if the Central Intelligence, sorry, not Central Intelligence, CSIS is the Canadian Security Intelligence Service. If CSIS, the Canadian Security Intelligence Service, let me repeat this again for the subtitles, so hopefully the subtitles get it right. The Canadian Security Intelligence Service, CSIS, which is the abbreviation is CSIS. CSIS is the abbreviation. CSIS. CSIS, the Canadian Security Intelligence Service. If they suddenly found out that there were all of these volunteer Canadians who were volunteering to be CSIS officers. I would bet that the Canadian government would be like, great, all of these people are working for free. We don't have to pay them. And they're helping defend Canada. All of these concerned Canadian citizens are helping defend Canada. We don't even have to pay them. They're basically working for free. And you kind of know that if someone's doing it because they just love Canada, if someone's being a volunteer CSIS agent, they're doing it because they really want to defend the country. So their intentions are good. And what would you rather have? A person who volunteers to protect Canada simply because they love Canada, or a traitor who's being paid, a traitor who's an incompetent traitor who's being paid to protect Canada but actually isn't and doesn't really care about Canada, you know? So that's another thing to too is like the people, typically the people who do it for free, the people who do it because to volunteer, the people who volunteer to protect Canada, those people they have typically better intentions because if they're doing it for free, if they're not even being paid to do it, then that goes to show you that those are people who really love Canada and want to defend Canada. So volunteer CSIS agents, it could be a really good thing, not only because the government of Canada is cheap, but also because now you have suddenly people who are doing it not for money, but they're doing it because they really care about Canada and they really want to defend Canada. So volunteers, Canadian Security Intelligence Service agents, would probably be really great for Canada. Now, Canada, keep in mind, has bit less problems than the United States. Of course, the United States has bigger problems. It's more complicated. There's never really, sometimes there are very simple yes or no solutions, but sometimes things are more complicated. Now, with regards to the United States has so much complexity because they are not only just a country around the world, they are like a superpower who suddenly is responsible for defending half the planet. Because I was, thinking about this the other day, and I want to make this into a meme, but it'd be really hard to kind of make it into a meme. So I'm just gonna say it, but it would be really funny if someone actually made this into a meme. Like right now, if you look at the map, right? If you look at the map of the world, Russia is huge. And this is Russia after even the Soviet Union collapsed, the Sovietsky Soyuz. Um, like Rushitsa Sovietsky Soyuz, Soyuznikom, Rushitsa Sovietsky, Rushitsa Sovietsky Soyuznikom. This is even after the collapse of the Soviet Union, and Russia is gigantic if you look on the map. So imagine before, when the Soviet Union was around, Russia was even bigger. Imagine Imagine if the United States of America did not exist or suddenly was no longer there. What would happen? Russia, now if you go look at the world map of the world, it would be all Russia. Like the entire world, every country would have a Russian flag. The entire world would be Russia. And it's kind of funny because it's like, what are they doing with Ukraine? I mean, wasn't Russia big enough as it is? Now they're bringing in Ukraine. No wonder Poland is scared. No wonder Finland is scared. No wonder Sweden is scared. No wonder France is scared. No wonder the Germans are always up to something. No wonder, right? Because it's like, so imagine really, it would make a funny meme. It really would, because someone could do a meme like, and the meme could say, what would happen if there was no more United States of America? Suddenly you look at the world map, the entire world map would be Russian, because the United States is really the only main deterrent to Russia. Sure, there's Canada, but Canada, we're a bunch of flaky traders, Canada. Canada's a bunch of flaky traders. I mean, like, look at me. My strategy was just to learn Russian. So my strategy was just to learn Russian and start dating a Russian soldier. So no, I'm just joking, sort of. But so that's what I'm saying. So really, the main uh, deterrent for Russia has always been the United States and Germany to an extent, but Germany can only do so much. So the United States, Germany, a little bit of Canada, but to be honest, Canada is kind of a bit of a traitors. Half of Canada is on Russia's side, to be honest. Half of Canada is on China's side, half of Canada is on Russia's side. So, unfortunately, that's just the reality. So, the United States, in my opinion, and now this is my opinion. This is not a yes or no. This is not, it's a good answer, it's a bad answer. This is just my opinion now. The United States and Canada could use the help. They really could. If there were a bunch of volunteer CIA agents, it would really, sure, there are downsides to everything. You can't make a decision without there being some sort of downside to that decision. Would there be downsides to volunteer CIA agents who did it because they love their country and they volunteered because they really care about the country? Would there be downsides to that? Yes, of course. There's downsides to everything that you do. Every decision you make, there's going to be some kind of downside. But do the benefits outweigh the downsides? Yes. In this case, in my opinion, there are far more benefits to having voluntary CIA agents. There are far more benefits to having voluntary CIA agents, Central Intelligence Agency agents, Central Intelligence Agency agents. There are far more benefits to having volunteer CIA operatives than there are downsides. But so to have a balanced discussion, let's go into the downsides because there are downsides, of course. You have people who are not properly trained. Uh, and maybe the way to correct that problem would be simply they should not go into territory that they don't know what they're doing. They should at least, for example, this is an example. This is a hypothetical situation. I'm not saying I'm just saying, for example, let's say you have someone who studied Chinese for years and they have Chinese heritage, right? Would you send that person to the Middle East? No, especially if they were a volunteer CIA agent, right? But if you have a person, they're not CIA officially, they're a volunteer, but they speak Chinese, their heritage is Chinese, they know China pretty well. And even if they're not a volunteer, even though if they're not a volunteer, even though they're not, sorry, officially, even though they're not an official CIA agent, the fact that they know China well makes them suitable to be a volunteer CIA agent, Central Intelligence agent. So, I mean, and a lot of times these people, these volunteers, they actually might be more qualified. The person who gets hired isn't always the most qualified. There's a lot of office politics. A lot of times, the person who was really right for the job wasn't hired for that job. So it's very possible there could be a lot of volunteer Central Intelligence Agency agents who are actually better suited for the job than the person who was actually hired to do the job. So, use some common sense. If you're going to have volunteers, put them where they know what they're doing, right? If you have someone who studied Russian, send them to Russia. Or just this is a hypothetical situation. This is a discussion. This is not a yes or no. This is just simply a discussion. What would work, what would make sense, what's common sense, what's not common sense, right? The other downside to the people is they're not being paid, which is actually a benefit for the government because the government's cheap and doesn't want to have to pay these people. But it's kind of a downside to the person who's doing it for free. It kind of like takes this person and the person might be like, they're doing so much work and they're not even being paid for it. It's kind of unfair. It's kind of unfair to that person a bit. But, if they're really doing it because they love the country and they're volunteering, they'll probably volunteer for a bit, but then eventually they might suddenly be like, they don't want to put up with this bull BS anymore, and they're not even being paid. They're not even being paid, and they're putting up with this BS, right? So unless it's like the conditions are good, unless they really know what they're doing, unless they really care about the specific topic or the specific, they're passionate, unless they're very passionate about the specific issue, eventually these people are going to be like, they don't want to do this if they're not going to get paid to do it anymore. They'll probably do it for a while. They'll probably volunteer for a while, but also they have jobs, they have other careers, they have other responsibilities. So volunteers are kind of limited. A person who's being paid to be a CIA agent, well, they're being paid to do it. So they have to report 24/7. But a person who volunteers, they work part time, they're not being paid, they don't have a budget. That's another downside. It's not like they have an expense budget and they can go book a hotel at the Four Seasons, right? I wonder if like all of these CIA agents, if they all stay at the Four Seasons. That'd be funny if like someone like booked a room at the Four Seasons just to like see if there's any celebrities or like, but it'd be really expensive. Like, the average person can barely afford probably a room at the Four Seasons hotel, right? But the Four Seasons hotel is just an example of a hotel that's expensive. Anyways, so yeah, no. So that being said, I was actually supposed to get into my theories as to why Taylor Swift is a CIA agent, but I know I went off and I kind of I went on another discussion which is related, and I was meaning to have a discussion about that as well, but it was definitely I wanted to I didn't mean to talk about that topic for so long, but anyways, let me now get into the reasons why I think that Taylor Swift is a CIA agent. I have actually good reasons. I thought about this a lot. So, first off, Taylor Swift, sure, she is talented, but to an extent. She cannot sing like Mariah Carey. She cannot sing like Celine Dion. She definitely can't sing like Adele or Carrie Underwood. So Taylor Swift definitely, there's some other stuff going on in the background. Maybe she has good marketing, a good marketing team, but a marketing team can only bring a mediocre singer so far. Sorry, I don't mean to call her a mediocre singer, but I'm just saying that's the truth, okay? That is the truth. I'm sorry if you're a big fan of Taylor Swift, but she is not the best singer in the world, okay? She just is not. She's considered, I guess, in singing to be like a stylist, but no, if you put Taylor Swift in a singing competition with Carrie Underwood, well, we all know Carrie Underwood won American Idol, so there's no contest there. So not only could there have been a marketing agency in the background propelling Taylor Swift to stardom, but what if maybe a CIA agency, maybe a Central Intelligence Agency, Central Intelligence Agency organization helping propel Taylor Swift to stardom? Kind of like in that Miss Congeniality movie, remember with Sandra Bullock? Remember the Miss Congeniality movie with Sandra Bullock? She definitely wasn't like Miss America, and they had to take her. And for the fact that she was an FBI agent was the reason they invested so much time and energy into making her look beautiful for the Miss Universe pageant, right? But she was definitely no Miss America. But at the end of it, she kind of actually did kind of was like Miss America. She really was very beautiful, but so that's what I'm saying. So they could have done the same thing with Taylor Swift. They could have said, is she the best singer? No. Is she the best dancer? No. Uh, is she like the most intelligent? No. Is she the blondest? No. Is she the pretty? Anyways, yeah. Anyways, Taylor Swift is very talented. Taylor Swift is extremely talented, but it's also very possible, just like in the Miss Congeniality movie, like with Sandra Bullock in the Miss Congeniality movie. Well, Sandra Bullock is the actress, but anyways, with the character played by Sandra Bullock, who played the FBI agent in this Miss Congeniality movie, it's very possible that they did the same with Taylor Swift, and that the CIA molded her, made her a celebrity, so that she could not only go around and make songs and inspire people, but that also so that she could spy on these Hollywood, she could spy in Hollywood, she could go to these Hollywood parties, she could spy in Hollywood. So that's one proponent of the theory. The next proponent is interesting. I remember this actually. I remember a few incidents with Taylor Swift. Taylor Swift has clashed with a lot of celebrities, a lot. And why would she be clashing with celebrities? There was, for example, of course, everyone probably remembers the Kanye West Taylor Swift incident where Kanye West got on the stage and he's like, Beyonce made the best video, right? So Taylor Swift obviously clashed with those people. Of course, you know what I mean by those people. Um, Irritating singers, like rappers. Those I meant when I meant those people, I meant rappers. The Kardashians, annoying Kardashians. So Taylor Swift clashed with those people, and so that's one kind of thing. But then another one is why is she clashing with so many people? Maybe also because she was trying to be too nosy like a CIA agent, right? What typically happens, what is the one of the main reasons why people clash is because someone goes in, maybe they're a bit nosy, they're a bit aggressive, they ask too many questions, like a CIA agent would do, right? Like a CIA operative would do, would be nosy, would ask questions. And there was another video. There was another video that went viral. I remember it was. I'm pretty sure it was with Sabrina Carpenter, or it was a different actress or celebrity or singer. But it was with a female who actually snubbed Taylor Swift. Taylor Swift was trying to talk to this person, but she was doing it in a way that was kind of like interrupting them. I remember now. I'm pretty sure it was Sabrina Carpenter, and so Taylor Swift was like basically interrupting this person, like trying to talk to them, as if, because I guess normally people would drop everything they're doing to talk to Taylor Swift. Taylor Swift walks in a room, and I guess Taylor Swift thinks that everyone's just going to drop what they're doing to talk to Taylor Swift. But Sabrina Carpenter, who is like a celebrity in her own right and doesn't really care for Taylor Swift, she just ignored Taylor Swift. And Taylor Swift was being very aggressive trying to talk to Sabrina Carpenter as if Taylor Swift was as if it was an order, as if it was her mission, as if it was her job to interrogate Sabrina Carpenter, which kind of it came off a little bit kind of like that. Like, Taylor Swift was being very aggressively trying to get Sabrina Carpenter's attention. Of course, it could have just been two women fighting, which is like pretty much the universe, two women fighting. If the universe could be labeled something, it could be called two women fighting, could be the label of the universe. So it could have just been two women snubbing each other, two women being catty with each other. It's very possible, but it's also possible that Taylor Swift was given some sort of order, given some sort of order or mission to interrogate Sabrina Carpenter about something, whatever. So, and then another reason why Taylor Swift could work for the Central Intelligence, and I always say Central Intelligence. It's Central Intelligence. Okay, I always want to, yeah, it's hard to pronounce. Central Intelligence Agency. I dare you 20 times to try to say it 20 times in a row correctly. Central Intelligence Agency, Central Intelligence Agency, Central Intelligence Agency. It's not. Anyways, so another reason why Taylor Swift could work for the Central Intelligence Agency is because America could use a role model like Taylor Swift to inspire people and also to kind of manipulate them, right? Look at Taylor Swift's music. If the Central Intelligence Agency wanted to kind of manipulate the masses, well, they can do it through music. And a lot of Taylor Swift's songs are kind of suspicious. The lyrics are a bit suspicious. If you actually listen to Taylor Swift songs, the lyrics are suspicious. And I wouldn't be surprised if there were subliminal messages in the songs because you remember the Simpsons episode uh, there was the Simpsons episode, and they were making fun of these like NSYNC and stuff like that for having these songs. And then one of the songs had this "Join the Army." It was a "Join the Navy" backwards. It was like a "Join the Navy" backwards subliminal message. And one of the songs in the Simpsons, there was a whole episode on the Simpsons where Lisa and Bart were joining like a singing group, and then one of the singing groups was trying to subliminally encourage people to join the Navy. Da da join the Navy, and then Lisa Simpson she got she got like a videotape of the song and she played it backwards and she realized that what she was saying join the Navy, and it was like a subliminal message to try to convince people to join the Navy, right? So they can use music for subliminal messages. The Simpsons obviously picked up on this, and and you have to some of these times. Sometimes these lyrics are just like annoying. You know what I mean? Like some these lyrics are really annoying. Like Jennifer Lopez, she says, "Oh, love don't cost a thing. Love don't." What are you talking about, Jennifer Lopez? Love don't cost a thing. You make millions of dollars. You wouldn't like you literally money is so much part of it. Money is part of it. Money is the reason why so many people get divorced. So for you to just try to be like, "Oh, money's not an issue," and then it's in one of your songs and it's played 24/7. So yeah, these songs can be used to manipulate the masses. And then also Taylor Swift, eventually, if it was suddenly discovered that she was a spy, an intelligence officer, CIA operative, CIA agent, Central Intelligence Agency agent working for the CIA, suddenly, if this was discovered, it would be so inspiring. It would be such like Taylor Swift would be a hero, an American pioneer, a hero, an American hero. Taylor Swift would become an American pioneer. Taylor Swift would inspire all of these people to become CIA agents as well, to also become Central Intelligence Agency agents, also CIA officers, CIA operatives. It would be so inspiring. It would make a great movie. It would make a great autobiography. Imagine secret spy. Taylor Swift was a spy for all these years. Imagine the book deal. That would be like a major book deal. It would be make it would all of these women would be we want to read about Taylor Swift's adventures as a spy. Taylor Swift, like everyone thought that she just was a singer, but she actually was also a spy and she traveled the world. Oh, that's another point, right? So the other reason why Taylor Swift would make a good CIA agent, or she could be already one, she probably is. I mean, it's very possible she is, for honestly, is that a lot of these celebrities, they get special access around the world, right? Like Taylor Swift, maybe she'll do a concert in Germany, maybe she'll do a concert in France, maybe she'll do a concert in Russia, and suddenly Taylor Swift is like given the red carpet in these countries. And so the CIA can use these celebrity singers to get special access to these countries. And then when people think that Taylor Swift, all she's doing in, for example, in Greece, let's say Taylor Swift went to Greece or Turkey, or I don't know if Taylor Swift would do a concert in Iran. I doubt that we'd ever see. Maybe now after Trump destroyed Iran, maybe now when they rebuild Iran, maybe we will see Taylor Swift do concerts in Iran. But anyways, so all you thought she just was a singer, you thought she just was doing a concert, and then the next thing you know, we find out that Taylor Swift this whole time was also a central intelligence, not central intelligence, a central intelligence agency agent. Now we find out all this time the real secret identity of Taylor Swift, right? So, being able to travel the world, being a celebrity, when you're a celebrity, people open up to you more. They trust you for some reason. There's probably all of these women around the world that think that they can trust Taylor Swift. That if you take these crazy fans who are obsessed with Taylor Swift, who love Taylor Swift, who think she's a good singer, who think she's a good dancer, who think she's smart, and take these people and you put them in a room with Taylor Swift, suddenly all of these fans, these women, Taylor Swift has these people in her pocket. Taylor Swift has these women like Taylor Swift has every word of it. Like Taylor Swift has these women wrapped around her finger. Taylor Swift now suddenly has these fans wrapped around her finger. Suddenly now, like let's say there was like an Iranian diplomat in France, right? Maybe it was in France, Paris, beautiful Paris, and Taylor Swift was sent on a mission to Paris because she was supposed to interrogate a fan, one of her fans, who also happened to be an Iranian diplomat who worked in the Iranian embassy in Paris, France, right? So it's just a hypothetical. This is just a hypothetical example, right? Situation. And so Taylor Swift was tasked with going to France, going to Paris, doing like maybe some sort of book signing or concert, and then suddenly just randomly happening to run into this Iranian diplomat on the street. And suddenly, this Iranian diplomat who happens to be a fan of Taylor Swift. This is just a hypothetical situation. It's probably unlikely that an Iranian diplomat would be a fan of Taylor Swift, but it's also possible. You never know. Suddenly, this Iranian diplomat who works at the Iranian embassy in France, who's a fan of Taylor Swift, she sees Taylor Swift and she's like, oh my God, that's Taylor Swift. What are the chances, right? And then Taylor Swift starts talking to this Iranian diplomat who works in the Iranian embassy in France. And suddenly, now this Iranian diplomat, she has no clue that Taylor Swift works for the Central Intelligence Agency. And now she's asking Taylor Swift all these questions, and she's asking these questions to Taylor Swift, and Taylor Swift is asking these questions. Taylor Swift is asking questions. Taylor Swift suddenly is asking questions to this Iranian diplomat, right? Like, and so now Taylor Swift is able to get all this information because this Iranian diplomat happens to be a fan of Taylor Swift, and she just is hanging on to her every word, and she's telling her everything because she thinks she can trust Taylor Swift because she just thinks that Taylor Swift is some beautiful celebrity and she loves Taylor Swift's music, and she thinks Taylor Swift is such a good soul, such a good person, and suddenly this Iranian diplomat in France is telling everything to Taylor Swift, right? So that's just an example, a hypothetical situation, but it could have happened. It could happen in the future. Taylor Swift really could have done those things, right? It's possible. And so imagine there could be a movie. The movie would be so. Imagine the movie, the Central Intelligence Agency, Taylor Swift uncovered as the spy or whatever. There could be a documentary. It would be all over the news. It would be sensational. It would be a sensational news story that would be talked about on the news for months. And those news agents are bored. You know that those news people on the news sometimes they get really bored, right? If nothing's happening in the world, there's no wars or anything. Those newscasters get really bored. They have nothing to talk about. So then the next thing you know, all they have to talk about is they're criticizing the size of Trump's hair, or the size of his tie, or the size of his shoes, or the size of his anyways. So that's what I'm saying. So it's funny because now imagine if Taylor Swift was suddenly found out to be a spy working for the Central Intelligence Agency. All of these news stations around the world, they'd be talking about this for months. Like Taylor Swift all this time was a secret agent, spy, whatever, right? So it would bring a lot of good publicity to the CIA. Suddenly, she could become the face of the CIA. Suddenly, Taylor Swift for a couple decades could be like the brand ambassador, the face of the CIA, the face of the Central Intelligence Agency. Taylor Swift could be associated with the CIA. It would inspire so many women and men to become CIA officers, CIA agents. A lot of people would be like, wow, well, if Taylor Swift can do it, then anybody can do it. Like if Katy Perry can go to the moon, well, she didn't actually go to the moon. If Katy Perry can go into space, well, she didn't actually go in. Anyways, if Katy Perry can go to the borders of space, if Katy Perry can go to the borders of space, then anyone can go into space. Hey, if Taylor Swift can be a CIA agent, a Central Intelligence Agency agent. If Taylor Swift can be a CIA operative, then anyone could be a CIA operative. This could inspire anyone, right? Men, women, aliens from outer space. So I think it would be good. I think it would be. Not good. Like I think. I think it's very possible that she could be work for the CIA. Um, I definitely would. It would make her more popular and more famous for sure. If suddenly Taylor Swift was found out that she worked for the CIA and there was now a book deal, she wrote a book, an autobiography, telling her adventures not only as a world star singer, a world star, pop star performer, not only as a singing sensation and a world renowned pop star, but now suddenly she's also a secret agent and she has all of these stories that she did. Suddenly now that would be like a major book deal. The books would be flying off the shelves. People would be buying all these Taylor Swift books, Secret Adventures of Taylor Swift in the CIA. She's a secret CIA agent. All the adventures of Taylor Swift, and it would be great marketing. It would, like, it would sell a lot of books, and Taylor Swift would become so much richer. Taylor Swift would become so much more richer. She'd get, yeah, Taylor Swift would become so much more, as if she's not rich enough, anyways, Taylor Swift. But, anyways, yeah, Taylor Swift would become so much more richer. And so she'd be selling all these books about how Taylor Swift not only was a singer, pop star, musician who traveled the world and got to go to all these countries and experience the world, but now she's also a spy and she has all of these secret hidden adventures that people are now going to find out in the book, in her book deal. And she sells all these books. There could be a movie, a TV movie. There could be documentary. She could be on the news as a guest. She could be representing the CIA and in brand ambassador meetings. She could be suddenly do promotional videos for the CIA, for the Central Intelligence, the CIA, the Central Intelligence Agency. Suddenly, Taylor Swift will be like the new face of the CIA. She could be like the brand ambassador, right? So there's so much opportunity there, right? And I do think that, you know, Carrie Underwood is definitely a better singer. Let's have Carrie Underwood continue singing because she can sing. Carrie Underwood, like the one who won American Idol. Carrie Underwood, she can sing. She sings like an angel. It's as if God bestowed upon Carrie Underwood the most powerful singing voice, one of the most powerful singing voices in the world. Because also, of course, Mariah Carey and Polina Gagarina, who's Russian, like the Russian version of Carrie Underwood. Polina Gagarina, it can also sing amazingly. But of course, Carrie Underwood, yes. Can she sing? Oh, Carrie Underwood can sing. So for her to continue as a singer, great. People love to listen to her sing. She's so great. Taylor Swift. I could Taylor Swift use a break from singing and trying to dance on stage? Yes, I think Taylor Swift could use a break. She could definitely become a movie star, an actress, or a brand ambassador for the CIA. She could do an all tell all book deal. She could do a book tell all where she tells all about her secret adventures as a CIA agent. And suddenly Taylor Swift, and as it was not only was the world pop star and singing sensation and traveled the world, but now she's also a Central Intelligence Agency agent, right? A CIA operative. So I think it would be great for Taylor Swift's career for sure. Um, but I mean, I have to admit something. I kind of like Carrie Underwood's music better because Carrie Underwood, she can really sing. Like, she has a powerful voice and she knows what she's doing. She's a professional singer. Um, I think Taylor Swift is definitely a performer. I wouldn't really call her a singer or a dancer, but she's definitely a performer. And Taylor Swift definitely, I mean, she's not like, I'm not saying she's not talented, but like not at the same level as Carrie Underwood. I just think anyways. So, um, so yeah, so that I think I gave some pretty good reasons as to why Taylor Swift actually could work for the CIA, the Central Intelligence Agency. It would be good for the CIA. It would be good for Taylor Swift. It would be a win-win-win. Be a win-win situation for Taylor Swift. Be a win situation for the CIA, the Central Intelligence Agency. It would be a good it would be a win for the world because all of the fans around the world who love Taylor Swift, they would be inspired by Taylor Swift's story. Maybe even they would become Central Intelligence Agency agents. Or it could like become horrifying to all the Russians and the Iranians and the Chinese and the Germans and sometimes Canadians who suddenly realized that they told all of these secrets to Taylor Swift thinking they could trust her. And now suddenly the CIA, the Central Intelligence Agency, has all of this information on Russia, Iran, China, Germany, France, and sometimes Canada. So that would be that like imagine the horrified look on all of these the Russian FSB, the Federalnaya Sluzhba Bezopasnosti, the Russian Federal Security Service. Imagine the look on the Russian Federal Security Service faces when they discover, if they discover suddenly that Taylor Swift was a CIA operative this whole time. The Russians would be like, this whole time she was doing. Oh, why am I doing an Indian accent? I'm trying to do Russian accent. Anyways, the Russians would be like, oh my God, this whole time when Taylor Swift was doing all these concerts in Russia. I don't know if Taylor Swift ever did she do concerts in Moscow, Russia? Probably. I mean, she's pretty, but anyways, let's just say, for example, oh, if they suddenly were like, all of this time, Taylor Swift was doing all of these concerts in Russia, all of these concerts in Moscow and Iran, and this whole time, Taylor Swift was a Central Intelligence Agency agent officer, right? The look on the Russians' faces, like the Iranians' faces. I don't think, but I'm just saying that as an example, as a hypothetical situation. But actually, I don't think that Taylor Swift. I could, anyways. You could just Google search this. If anyone Google searches this and then provide the answer in the comments, did Taylor Swift ever do any concerts in Iran? Did Taylor Swift? It's a question. Did Taylor Swift do any concerts in Iran? Did Taylor Swift do any concerts in Russia? Did Taylor Swift do any concerts in China? So ask these questions. But anyways, um, so yeah, I hope you like this video. I just want to say that I'm not really a fan of Taylor Swift. I think she's okay. She's decent. She's mediocre, in my opinion. Obviously, she's more richer and successful than me, so the joke's on me, and the joke will always be on me. The joke will always be on me. But so obviously, she's way more richer and successful than me. This video was definitely not to in any way. I mean, if anything, like I said, it would actually be good for her career to suddenly, if it was found out she worked for the CIA, like if she really did work for the CIA, which is very possible. It's very possible because of course typically the CIA agents don't always just scream it from the rooftops, right? But sometimes it's their strategy. Sometimes it's the strategy of the CIA, the Central Intelligence Agency. Did I say that right? Central Intelligence Agency. Anyway, no, I said it twice. Okay. Anyways, the CIA. Sometimes the CIA, sometimes it actually is the strategy for them to be open about it, right? Sometimes actually, or for suddenly for them to have it been a secret, and then suddenly to be open about it at the end. It could be a strategy, right? See, the CIA, they have to be crafty. The Central Intelligence Agency agents have to be really crafty. They have to be willing to like go where no man or woman has gone before, kind of thing. So they always have to be inventive, and that's the same with the Russians. Like if you learn from watching American spy TV shows, like the Russians have to be adaptable. The Russians have to be adaptable. The Russians have to be like, you have to be creative, think on their feet, kind of thing. And the Russians constantly, they're pulling stuff like this. They're pulling tricks constantly. If you ever watch those TV shows like Homeland and The Americans and Covert Affairs and Alias, if you ever watch those TV shows, a lot of time, and The Diplomat, a lot of times the Russians are ahead of the Americans. They're constantly doing innovative stuff. They're doing innovative stuff, and they're coming out with great ideas, and they're throwing things in the wrench. They're throwing a wrench in the, anyways, whatever. They're throwing something. They're throwing elections, whatever. But so yeah, sometimes it's the strategy. Sometimes it's a good strategy for the CIA to be more open about things, and they are pretty open. I mean, the CIA has a website, and they encourage people to go to the Central Intelligence Agency website, Central Intelligence Agents, Central Intelligence Agency website. They encourage people to go there. They're pretty open about what they do sometimes. They're pretty transparent. I would say that the CIA, the Central Intelligence Agency, is definitely more transparent than the Russian FSB, the Federalная служба безопасности, the Russian Federal Security Service. So I definitely think that the CIA is more kind of transparent. But I would say, however, that the Russian FSB, the Federalная служба безопасности, the Federal Security Service, they're more innovative. I think that they are more clever. They're more clever. They're sneaky. They're sneakier. They're more sneaky. The Russian Federal Security Service, the Federalная служба безопасности, of Russia, the Kremlin. I think that the Russians are more sneaky. They're more creative. They totally do stuff like this. They totally would do something like this, and they probably have like celebrity FSB agents as well. In fact, there was another one, for example. I mean, she did a music video supporting her FSB comrades. That doesn't necessarily mean that she's also FSB, but she probably is FSB. I mean, she did a whole music video supporting the Russian FSB. So, anyways, there was Nayusha. Nayusha, a famous Russian pop star, she did when the Russians were caught. So there was a big spy operation in the United States by the Russians. There was a big Russian spy operation, and in 2010, the Americans caught like 30. I think it was about 30 Russian illegals who were actually turned out to be spies, but they were posing as everyday Americans, right? And then when this happened, and all of these Russians were arrested in the United States, when this happened, and when all of these Russians were suddenly arrested in the United States of America, then Nayusha, who's a Russian pop star, she came out with a music video and she was doing showing support for the Russian FSB. So she's probably also she's probably not just a singer. Nayusha is probably not only just a singer and a pop star. She probably also works for the FSB. I mean, she's doing music videos to show she supports the FSB. That doesn't necessarily mean for sure she's an FSB agent, but she probably could be an FSB agent, right? So Russia probably does this a lot too. Now, Polina Gagarina. I love Polina Gagarina. She is such a beautiful singer. She really can sing, Polina Gagarina. And I mean, you know, she, it's probably like she's, like I said, maybe like the singers who can really sing, let's have them sing. Let those singers sing, right? But maybe like a singer that relies more on being like a pop star, maybe a singer that relies more on being like having good style, like you know, a singer that relies on marketing gimmicks and stuff like that. But and in the case of Paulina Gagarina, she is such a beautiful, talented singer. She doesn't need to do anything but sing. She could have the most successful career and just be a singer and still be successful only by singing, because that's how good of a singer Paulina Gagarina is. She is an amazing singer. But actually, she also did some acting. Polina Gagarina was also an actress, which is interesting. But she was also a good actress. I saw some of her scenes. She's a good actress too. Polina Gagarina, she's a great singer. She's also a great actress as well. And she's probably a great human being. Polina Gagarina is definitely probably a great human being. Uh, Polina Gagarina is probably a great human being, and she's also a good singer, amazing, phenomenal singer. And she's very humble too, if you watch. Anyways, but no, actually, I think Taylor Swift is also talented in her own way. I think Taylor Swift is kind of talented. But ultimately, I just wanted to say that, you know, America, Canada, Russia, China, Germany, France, Italy, Spain, Mexico, Cuba, all of these countries, um, we have to all start working together. You know, a lot of times, you know, there is division. There definitely is division, but it's possible that the world could come together, have peace, uh, work on solving the world's problems together, and do more stuff in space, build rocket ships, build spaceships. It would be really cool if we could suddenly build the first like colony-sized spaceship, the biggest spaceship in the world. That's on the agenda. I think that should be put on the maybe it's not a priority item on the agenda. I mean, it could be. I mean, if suddenly we found out that Earth was about to be hit by a mega asteroid, suddenly, if we hypothetical situation, suddenly, if hypothetically we found out that Earth was about to be hit by a mega asteroid, then it would be on the list, on the priority list. It would be a priority to make the world's biggest first spaceship, right? To be able to transport humans into the galaxy, onto other planets, right? So definitely that would be cool if the world can come together, all these countries, and work together on building mega spaceships, like the first Titanic, for example, the first Titanic-sized spaceship. That would be cool. Imagine the first Titanic-sized spaceship that could transport humans into outer space and go farther distances. That would be cool. So ultimately, you know, I want world peace. I think world peace is good. Sometimes you have to prepare for war. Sometimes you have to go to war because you need war to defend yourself. I mean, Of course, countries also need to defend themselves. Countries, of course, need to defend themselves. But of course, world peace would be ideal. It would be better to have world peace. And yeah, but of course, I love science and mathematics. That's where I'll always be, is science and mathematics. Um, and I mean, my role model would definitely be my role model. So my role model would definitely be Nikola Tesla, Albert Einstein, those guys. Um, Thomas Edison. I'm not sure if Thomas Edison was legit, because a lot of people are now saying he wasn't legit. I don't know. I wasn't. I mean, how can we really know for sure at this point? But anyways, Thomas Edison, Nikola Tesla, Albert Einstein, and even some of the people today, like the current modern ones, like more modern, who maybe aren't at the same level as Nikola Tesla, but they're kind of, they're kind of famous in their own right for something. Like for example, Neil deGrasse Tyson. There's Neil deGrasse Tyson. There's Bill Nye the Science Guy. Bill Nye the Science Guy. There's or there was who I know, I forgot the name of another scientist, but there was another scientist too. But anyways, you know what I mean. You get my point. So yeah, and I just want to say, everyone, I hope you enjoyed the live stream, and I like to come up with different creative new ideas for videos, and I like to kind of push the envelope a bit. I like to think outside the box. I like to get creative, and I think being a creative person can really help. It can really help an organization, like for example the CIA, the Central Intelligence Agency organization. So that being said, thank you to everyone. I didn't really see many people come in the live stream, but if anyone did come in the live stream, thank you for coming in the live stream. Thank you for liking, if you did like the video, and if you do subscribe, that would be appreciated. But you don't have to subscribe. You don't have to subscribe, but if you do subscribe, that would be appreciated. And once again, thank you to everyone, and to my Russian audience. Privet, privet. I already, hello. I said hello wrong in Russian. It's funny. Sometimes, I mean, you study Russian for years and you still, like, sometimes mistakenly say some words incorrectly, mistakenly, because you're used to speaking English. If you're used to speaking English so much, and of course you're still gonna make some blunders when you speak Russian. So, anyways, to my Russian audience, privet. Привет, добро пожаловать на мой канал. Привет, добро пожаловать на мой канал. Спасибо за внимание. Это все на сегодня и до свидания. Thank you to everyone. That's it for now. I'm going to end the video, wrap up the video here because I'm tired. And yeah, and of course, I hope that I really hope that it doesn't turn into World War IV. What happened with Iran and the United States? What's been happening with Iran and the United States? I really hope this doesn't turn into World War IV. I really hope that we have world peace, and I'm praying for world peace. And that's it. Thank you for joining the live stream, and that's it for now. And yes, let's everyone please pray for world peace. Okay. Bye. Do svidania. Sayonara. Auf Wiedersehen. Adios.